So welcome everybody to our latest edition of Plant Health Club. We're very pleased that you could join us today. Today we're going to be talking about what can be a very important transition in people's scientific research careers, which is when they sort of get their first taste of independence. In the UK, this often happens through a research fellowship. I'm briefly just going to share my screen to introduce today's session and just provide a little bit of context for you. So my name's Gail Preston. I'm the Vice President of the British Society for Plant Pathology, and the topic we are going to talk about today is of particular interest to me because I was myself a research fellow quite a number of years ago. I was a Royal Society University Research Fellow, which is one of the major research fellowships available in the UK, and now as an academic at the University of Oxford, I'm more often involved in mentoring fellows as they're applying, or potential fellows, or reviewing fellowship applications, so I can bring that perspective to today's discussions. But we also have two very exciting speakers who are recently gone through the process and have more up-to-date experience than I do to talk to you about it. So this session is being organised by the British Society for Plant Pathology as Plant Health Club. It's a free opportunity for professional development, networking, sharing information, supporting the development of skills and collaborations in plant health outreach and education. And of those of you who are new to Plant Health Club, we hope you'll join us for future sessions. If you're not currently a member of the British Society for Plant Pathology, I would strongly encourage you to consider becoming a member. There's an awful lot of different benefits that you can get as a member, including reduced registration fees, opportunities to apply for support for summer internships for undergraduates, to apply for fellowships to go to visit other laboratories, or travel grants to let you go to conferences. You can get funding for your outreach activities, and you can get lots of different networking and professional development opportunities, including participation in a number of activities that we run in relation to EEDI. So which can all be useful things for you to do, particularly if you're at this stage of trying to build up your CV and you're thinking about the next steps to get involved with society activities. It can be a really useful thing at this point in your career. Take this opportunity just to highlight a couple of opportunities that may be of interest to you right now. One of them is the plant health undergraduate studentships. So these are funded in part by BSPP. We've just run the call for our own main society studentships, but this is a separate call specifically for studentships associated with pathogens of high risk in the UK, and strategies for controlling and managing and detecting them. And the deadline for this is the 27th of March. So if you're interested in supervising an undergraduate project this summer, then this could be something that you might be interested in looking into applying to in the next couple of weeks. And this run through the Royal Society for Biology. And before we just go into our main speakers, I thought it'd be useful just to briefly mention some of the range of different fellowships that might be available to you as a plant pathologist. And I'll also make this list available in the chat for this meeting, so you can take a look at it. So we're going to cover through our speakers today a couple of different types of fellowship opportunities, but it's worth bearing in mind that these are only a couple of the different opportunities that are open to you. There's a range of different schemes run by organisations such as the Royal Society, or the research councils in the UK, or various international bodies, European bodies, or specific institutions. And if people have specific questions about how some of these schemes work, we may or may not be able to answer them, but I wanted to make sure that you're aware of the full range of different opportunities that are available to you. So now I'm going to just pass over to Katharina, who's going to introduce today's speakers.
So I would also like to welcome you to this session. And before we get started with the speakers, I would like to make you aware that during the presentations, you should ensure to have the microphones muted. And we will have a question and answer session after both speakers have spoken. And if time allows, we will also go into breakout rooms. And I would also like to make you aware that the meeting room will be open until 2 p.m. if you have an extended discussion. So with this, I would like to introduce our first speaker. It's Sebastian Yves van den Akker, and he is a geneticist with an interest in inter-kingdom communication between plants and their parasites. And Sebastian has recently been awarded a Crop Science Center Fellowship at the University of Cambridge. And he is also an official fellow at the King's College, Cambridge. And he will tell us how he got there and about his career path. So please welcome Sebastian.
Okay, thank you very much. Hi everyone, I hope you can hear me and see the screen okay. Yeah, good, I'm seeing some nodding. Okay, so what I was kind of asked to do was tell everybody a bit about the journey I've had in securing fellowships and kind of any hurdles that I've encountered along the way, or tips and things like that. And I always struggle a little bit with this kind of thing because there's so much context that goes into each one of the decisions and stuff like that. So what I thought I would do is kind of just tell you about each of the stages of my career, which ones of the what the problems were at that stage and things like that. And then you'll know the kind of things I might be able to know, and I'll try and leave like a good amount of time for questions, so that if anybody then wants to ask some specific question that they think I can help with, then I will do my best to help with that. On the slide, you can see my email and Twitter. If you want any help with something I don't address in this talk, or you have a specific question you may not want to ask in front of everybody, then you can email me. This is absolutely fine. And I always share all my proposals. So if you want a proposal, then I'm happy to share it with anybody. Okay, so this is my, I hope you can see my correct slide, not the notes. Yes. Yes. So my first step in my career was in doing a PhD, just like pretty much everybody. And this was really important for me because it laid the foundation for the first fellowship. And then once I got the first fellowship, this laid the foundation for all the rest of the fellowship. So I'll go into this one in like quite a bit of detail. This was a joint PhD that was physically separated between two research institutes. So one was the University of Leeds in Leeds, and the other one was the James Hutton Institute in Dundee. And this was like a truly joint project. So I would spend like 9 months in one institute and 12 months in the other institute, and then sort of oscillate backwards and forwards for the 4 years, which was really challenging to do from like a personal point of view, but really fantastic for many, many reasons. Most importantly, it was, I shouldn't say most importantly, very importantly, it was because it allowed me to build this greater network of colleagues and friends, academically as well as non-academically, and that was really important for kind of laying the groundwork for the different fellowships. And then also importantly, this is where I met my future wife about halfway through, and that kind of set the direction for basically most of the fellowship applications after that. So it was like, super important. And so my wife is French, and so it was at that point that I decided I wanted to go and move to France. And I had heard about these fellowship opportunities that were available for this kind of thing, for mobility, these Marie Curie fellowships. And I had heard that these were really, really good, really competitive, but really good, and good for the researchers. And so I thought this would be perfect. I'll go for this. And so I started working on things that I thought I would need in order to be competitive for a fellowship, like quite seriously. And so I remember this, I wrote a list of all the stuff that I thought I needed at the time. And this list had things like papers and that I wanted to get out, and small grants I wanted to apply for, or like prizes and things like that that I wanted to try and get. And these are all the things that I thought I needed to do in order to be able to demonstrate that I would fit the bill for a fellowship in terms of the independence and things like that. And so I spent about 2 years pretty much working really hard on trying to get all those things. So really, really long lead time, and trying to gather as much kind of, strengthen my CV basically as much as possible during that period. And then this was before I even knew where I was going to go or where I wanted to go with the Marie Curie Fellowship. So I spoke to one of my supervisors, who was John Jones from the James Hutton Institute. And I said to him, I told him I want to move to France and I want to move to the best pathology group in France. And so I said, who's the best group? And he said it was Thomas Coy. And so I wrote to Thomas Coy, he's in Montpellier. And I wrote to him and I said, I want to move to France. I'm determined. I'm going to apply for a Marie Curie Fellowship. Would you, support me in that? And he luckily said yes. And so we wrote a project, and that was a super useful experience. It was kind of my first experience like writing a project, you know, a full-sized fellowship proposal. And Thomas was really supportive of that. And I thought the project was good, but in the end, it didn't get the fellowship. So the first attempt was unsuccessful. First fellowship attempt was unsuccessful. And but obviously, you know, nevertheless, you learn a lot from these kind of things, as you often will hear, not just about the process of like writing like a grant and things like that. But I also learned, importantly, that by missing this, it allowed me to get something that was objectively better from at least from an academic point of view. And that was just after this was announced, and I didn't get this one, a new opportunity opened from BBSIC called the Anniversary Future Leader Fellowship. And this was a new fellowship scheme that BBSIC was launching and just sort of trying out to see how it was going to work. And this is now called the Discovery Fellowships. And so if people are looking at fellowships for early career researchers, this is like one of the major ones in the UK. It's open right now, the call is open, I think, and it's going to close in May. So it's not too late to be thinking about this if you're not already. And so, so effectively it was a Discovery Fellowship. And what was really special about these is that you could apply very early on, at very early career stage. So before you had completed your PhD, you could even apply. And this is quite rare for a fellowship opportunity. So that was wonderful that this came available. So I thought I would go for this. And because of all of this long prep I had done for the Marie Curie to try to bolster myself, I was really, really well prepared for this, with the exception of a project. So I didn't have a project, but other than that, everything was looking good. So I actually wanted to stay then at the University of Leeds. And so I was talking with the supervisor about this, and it turned out that the main project from my PhD was basically hoovered up for a grant in the lab, and so couldn't be put in for a fellowship also in the lab, because this would be kind of conflicting. And so I had to find a new project and a new lab quite close to the deadline, like really short of the deadline. So I thought to myself, well, where's the best place in the UK? And at the time I thought for that project, I thought it was the John Innes Centre in Norwich. And I didn't know anybody in the John Innes Centre. So I wrote to John Jones, again, my supervisor from James Hutton. And I said, you know, I want to move to John Innes. Do you know anybody in John Innes I can write to? And he said, write to Paul Birch at Dundee. He works with Mark Banfield, and they're doing some cool stuff on structures of effectors and things like that. So I wrote to them and said, you know, I want to apply for this very, very short deadline. And we managed to very quickly put a fellowship application together that was sort of coherent. And then ultimately, yeah, I was very fortunate to get that fellowship. So that was the first step. What I learned from this step was that what I mentioned in the beginning about this joint PhD, so this importance of this broad network, the only way that we could have got that fellowship application turned around in such a short period of time was because of Paul and Mark. They really helped with that. And it's because Paul already knew me from before while I was working there. So this really kind of vindicated that decision about trying to have this split site PhD and develop this broad network. Because you know, people knew you already, and they knew what you were like, and they, you know, it's much easier for someone to help you if they know you already. So I learned that. I learned the importance of long lead times. Like, I really do not like writing grants very short time, and it takes a really, really long time to write a good fellowship application normally, unless you got really good help. But I learned, yeah, it's very miserable to write something quickly, and it's definitely not how I like to work now. So that was the first fellowship, this Anniversary Future Leader Fellowship, or Discovery Fellowship. And this was, again, another joint position between the University of Dundee and the John Innes Centre. And again, another truly joint position where I'd split my time between the two things, like 6 months here, 9 months there, et cetera, for the 3 years. And then, you know, I was still with my future wife at this point, and still am, but still was at this point as well. And so what I used to do was actually go to France and spend the weekends in France, and then in the week either work in Dundee or in John Innes. And the reason I say that is because, you know, your personal circumstances really dictates what you can and can't do. And I think I couldn't have done that if it wasn't for this sort of long distance kind of relationship. So yeah, you know, I worked basically at the same kind of level as I was trying to do during the PhD. I thought, will this work last time when I had this 2-year run up? And I said, okay, these are all the things I need to do in these 2 years in order to be competitive for a fellowship. And ultimately it kind of worked. So I thought, well, I'll just do the same thing in this in this fellowship, except I've got a 3-year lead up until the next fellowship, which is the David Phillips Fellowship. The David Phillips is a fellowship scheme also run by BBSRC. It's like the next level up from the Discovery. They don't run it anymore, unfortunately. It's been kind of superseded by the UKRI Future Leader Fellowship. But it's essentially the same kind of thing, where it's a large fellowship that allows you to establish your own group. So I knew I was going to go for this one, but I knew I'd have to wait until right at the last minute, because what I was really lacking when I kind of wrote this list was basically time. I didn't have enough time. And I was really young when I got the Future Leader Fellowship. I was the youngest BBSRC fellow of all time. And I had no experience, like I basically hadn't done a postdoc. So, and I knew that for a normal David Phillips applicant, the successful ones, they normally had way more experience than I would have. So I thought I'm going to have to wait until the very last minute until I can apply for the next fellowship, and I'll come back to that in a minute. And then I also remember knowing that I didn't know, again, what the project was going to be. So again, it was like I knew I wanted to apply for this thing in the future, and I was doing the prep already, but I didn't know what the actual idea was going to be. But I remember thinking that will sort of come, closer to the time. So coming toward the end of this first fellowship, I started to think about the next one more seriously. And the first thing was time. And so I asked the school in Dundee if they would support me and give me more time, provided that I continued to apply for fellowships to stay. And I didn't really expect them to say yes, but they did. They offered a couple of years that they would support me, provided I continued to apply for fellowships to stay. And I mentioned that because Dundee's an extremely supportive environment, and that's, everyone should know that, but also because, I didn't know that this kind of thing existed, and actually it can exist in some cases, and it's extremely important. The second thing was discussing with colleagues, like with a long lead time, what should the project be? And the advice I was given at the time was from Gordon Simpson, and he said, what are you known for in the field? And then whatever it is, you should write the project on that thing. And so at the time, I was known for something called the dog box that I won't go into, but that was clearly it. And so it was, everyone sort of agreed that that's the thing I should write a project on. And so we wrote a project on that. And the colleagues in Dundee were really, really supportive of, helping to kind of build those fellowship applications and stuff like that. So super useful. So I managed to do that with write that application for the next fellowship with a really long lead time, the way I wanted to do it, and that was much more enjoyable than the first time. So by a really long lead time for writing the application, it was like, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. So it was a good period of time to write a good application. So I submitted that one, and after I had submitted, University of Cambridge announced a new initiative called the Crop Science Centre. And the Crop Science Centre was this sort of marriage between the Department of Plant Sciences and NIAB, and it was supposed to bring together this fundamental research in plant sciences and this kind of applied research in crops. And I thought that's perfect for the kind of thing that I do. It's very reminiscent of the partnership at the James Hutton Institute where I used to work. And so I thought this would be, a wonderful place to start a new group with this kind of, new centre and stuff like that. So that was one of the things they announced. And the other thing they announced was a lectureship in plant sciences. And so I applied for the lectureship, not on the expectation to get it, but more so that I could use it as a way to then open the question about moving my fellowship over there. And I didn't get the lectureship, but they did say, if you get the fellowship, you can bring that here. So I thought that's great. And so at that point, I had found out that I had the interview for the David Phillips Fellowship, and I decided to try to move the host institute before the interview. So this is normally not a good idea, but I collected all the letters of support from the different departments, one from Dundee to say, yes, we're happy if he leaves. Well, we're not happy. We're unhappy that he's leaving, but we support him in that. And one from Cambridge saying, we're happy if he comes, and then submitted that. And the reason that was foolish is because it means I lost my support from the University of Dundee. So that support they had said where they would, continue to support me for a couple of years, provided I continue to stay. Obviously, by moving the fellowship, I would lose that support. And so basically, if I didn't get the David Phillips Fellowship, then I would have been out of a job 3 months later. So I think this was like objectively stupid, but it really did sharpen my focus when I turned up at the David Phillips interview, because it was like, even more important than it would have been otherwise. So I think that's not a good idea, but luckily it did work out. And the reason I did that was because Dundee had been so supportive, and I could have just not told them and then gone to the interview as normal and then moved it after the fact. But I just thought that wasn't the right thing to do because they had been so supportive and I was so grateful of it that I thought the best thing to do was just to tell them. So anyway, it worked out okay, and got the David Phillips Fellowship in the end and then moved to Cambridge. This was a single position. I had enough of these joint positions now, and I had enough of living apart with my wife. So my wife moved to Cambridge with me. We got married and had a couple of kids there. And the reason I say that is because I wouldn't have been able to have done the other stuff for sure if the family situation was different, for example. So if we already had kids, this would have been extremely challenging. What I learned from this fellowship application was that if you don't ask, you don't get. And so I really did not expect to get the support from the host or necessarily the support from Cambridge to move. And so I think it was really important to actually ask for help when you think you need help, because sometimes you can get more than you expect. I also learned how important it is to have supportive colleagues. These are like Gold Dust and Dundee and JHI and also Cambridge have been extremely supportive environments. And that really matters when you're choosing where you want to take your fellowship. I also learned that the side projects really matter. So I haven't really told you about the science of any of these things, but basically the first fellowship, the Anniversary Future Leader one, all of the science in this pretty much didn't work, but it was the side projects that I kind of like to have going on at the same time. They worked out well and they formed the basis of the next fellowship. And even though the science didn't work out, the Anniversary Future Leader Fellowship comes with so many other benefits that make you so competitive for the next one. You don't even need the science to work out in order to get in the next level up fellowship. Okay, so then once I joined Cambridge, as Katarina said, I then got a fellowship in King's and then more recently a Cupcroft fellowship to finally move to this crop science centre. That was the reason why I went down there in the first place. And then since being there, I've been trying to help others with fellowships. So we have 3 Marie Curie fellowships in the lab and helping others with URFs and yeah, many of the other fellowships that you saw on the slide that Gail put up. So my whole pathway basically now has been just fellowships. And I think that's it now. I don't think there are any more fellowships after that. So this will be it, but I've got a good amount of experience with fellowships, at least in the UK and also with Marie Curie's. And I think I kind of know a little bit about each one of these now and what it takes to make a good application. And so, yeah, I'm just going to leave it there. And if you have any kind of questions you want to ask, particular tips or about any of these particular options, then I can help. Or if it's another general stuff, then I'll try and do my best. All right, I'm going to pass back to the host.
Thank you, Sebastian, for this really informative talk. And we move on to our next speaker and welcome Beatriz Orosa, who is a Chancellor's Fellow at the University of Edinburgh at the Institute of Molecular Plant Science. And she is interested in how plants use protein post-translational modifications to respond to stresses. And she will also tell us about how she got there. Please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me. And I would like to share my screen. So, yeah, a sec. I would like to tell you today how was my career to science from my PhD, well, from my undergraduate to group leader that I am at the moment. So as all of you can notice I am Spanish, so I am not from the really warm and lovely side of Spain. I am from the other way, where it's rain as much as Glasgow, but we have a really nice weather in summer. So we have 9 months raining every single day, but we have 3 months of it's like go to the beach and drink beers outside. So I always been ecologist by heart. So I joined my first ecologist group when I was in secondary school, and so I really want to help the environment in any way. So I did biology because I thought it was the best way to understand first and after apply everything to protect the environment. So I did biology in the University of Santiago de Compostela. So the idea was to study ecology, but in second year, I had molecular biology and genetics, and I got so excited about the complexity of cells and the interactions between proteins, DNA. So I got so interested that when I finished my degree, I decided to apply for PhDs. So I got my studentship to do my PhD in Barcelona, in the CRAC. So it was an amazing time. So it's a really lovely place. It's like with a lot of people doing really amazing research. So my PhD was focused to understand how the family of proteins, CDPKs, regulate immune response. So during my PhD, I really enjoyed science, but also enjoy life. Barcelona is an amazing place to have spend and have a really nice time. So, but also during my PhD, I have a really complicated relationship with my PhD supervisor, so we didn't fit well. So at the point that it was too much for me, so I quit my PhD and think what it was going to be the next step in my career. So I went back home and I was looking for jobs, and I found a research assistant position in a biomedical lab. So I applied. It was a 6-month position, so I got it. And when this post finished, they offered me to stay and have my own line of research. So I've been working during that time in that lab for 3 years, understand how rheumatoid arthritis, that is one of the more important autoimmune disease, is regulated. So I work in this pathway. I decipher how this pathway works, targets, and also a target that could be a protein, in this case a LPA, a receptor, that can be targeted to stop the progressing of the disease. So it was a really successful time for me. I got 4 papers as a first author, but more importantly, I recovered my love for science. So I go back, finish my PhD, and look for postdocs. So I was looking for postdocs, and I thought in this post in TER about a research position, a postdoc research position with Aris Satanandon group, looking for a new PTM that I never heard about. It was sumo. So I think always I want to work in plant molecular biology, so this was perfect for me. So I applied and I got the postdoc position in Aris, where I've been working trying to understand how this TM sumorylation regulates stress response in plants. So I've been working in different stresses and how those stresses are regulated by sumo. And during my time in Aris lab, Stephen Spowell came and gave a talk about the ubiquitin code. So for me, it was like amazing how plants or really cells are able to use the ubiquitin code to regulate responses, stress responses. So as soon as finished my postdoc with Tari, I applied for a position in Stephen's lab, and I got it. So I moved from Durham to Edinburgh, where I've been working and trying to understand this ubiquitin code, how different linkages are used for cells to regulate different pathways in response to pathogens. And was in this point where all my papers from Aris lab were published. So I decided that my CV was strong enough to apply for fellowships and get my own position. So I did it, and I've been awarded as a Chancellor Fellow at the University of Edinburgh, where I have now my own lab. And in my lab is focused to translate the knowledge and methodologies that I design in Stephen's lab to crops. So my lab is working understand how the ubiquitin pathway regulates immune response in barley, but also from the pathogen point of view, how pathogens are able to hijack the plant immune response. And finally, how can we use this pathway, the ubiquitin pathway, to enhance resistance? So, as I told you in my first slide, I am ecologist. So one of the biggest problems or the biggest threats for the environment are climatic change, but also agriculture. So in order to feed the world population, we need to increase crop production. So we need more and more land, and this is in detriment of the areas that should be protected. So if we are able to enhance agriculture and avoid all these almost 60% of losses by biotic and abiotic stress, we will be able to protect better the environment. So this is my way to instead of join an ecologist group and be activist, is through science. So now I'm going to tell you about some things that could be really useful for me if I knew about them during my career, and will facilitate a lot my professional career. So as you see, my advice is enjoy your PhD. Enjoy science is amazing. It's amazing job. So, but also try to get a good balance between science and life. As a first year PhD student, we spend 24/7 in the lab. And it's like, PhD is really long, so don't do it in your first year. But sure, you will need to do it in your last months before submit your thesis. But also be resilient. So for each success that you have during your PhD, you are going to have a lot of failure. And this is part of science. It's trying and find answers, and it's not always easy. So as acknowledged in my PhD, I have a full paragraph to say thank you for everyone that came for beers with me during my PhD, for celebrate all my success, but mostly for all deal with the failure of my PhD. And also very important, mentor. It's like mentors can help you to move to the next step in your career, but also if you have, they can lead you if you have problems. For example, you have the PhD committee or PhD advisors. If you run problems with your supervisors, you have a lot of help, so use it. So if you enjoyed science, so move to the next step as postdoc. If you didn't, there is so many options for you. You can move to industry or so many options that are available. So don't worry, science, being in academia is not the only choice. But if you enjoy your PhD, why not? So as a postdoc, I recommend strengthen your CV. So I thought the best way to pursue academia was have a really strong CV. So I worked hard and I got quite a few articles, papers, and I thought it was enough, but it wasn't. So there is some other things that you need in your CV to be competitive. So you need networking. It's really important. So you are going to need letter of support for your fellowships. You need to find people that is going to review your fellowships, or even can offer you a job because meet you in a conference and you surprise them with your research and with your excitement. So it's really important, networking. Also, as Sebastian said, it's you have to prove independence. So you have proof as postdoc, sometimes it's not easy to prove independence. If you, as in my case, I didn't have to apply for postdoc fellowships. I got one after the other. So I didn't have to apply for fellowships. So for me, proof independence was quite difficult. So things that you can do is apply for fellowships, but also small things. It's like applying for travel grants, or for also there is the small grants that you can get, so you can the small pots of money that you can use to pay a student over summer to start with some preliminary data, to get some preliminary data for your next step, for your idea. Also, another things that are important are be good citizen. So during my interview, they asked me, one of the questions was asked me if I was a good citizen. So in my mind, for 30 seconds, I panicked. So I recycling, I contribute to charity. So, but was not the question that I'm looking for. So be a good citizen means that you contribute to your institution. So you can contribute in different ways. You can organize talks, student initiatives, or participate in the outreach team of your institution. And this is really good, having all those things in your CV. And of course, mentors. So mentors can be in your institution or can be outside in different universities across UK or even outside of UK. So those mentors can help you to telling you what are the weaknesses in your CV, so you can strengthen them, and also can help you a lot when you're applying for fellowships. So for me, Stephen Spoy was my mentor and helped me so much during my journey to get to be independent. So after I got when I start to apply for fellowships, you have to be resilient. You are not going to get the first one that you apply. So I applied for Royal Society, David Phillips, and a Chancellor Fellow. So I was not selected for the Royal Society. I was the first on the waiting list for David Phillips, and I was awarded by the Chancellor Fellow. So as soon as I got my fellowship, important things that was important for me is, of course, have a mentor. It's really important to tell you which is the goals that you have to achieve, because fellowships normally is only for in my case is for 5 years. So after 4 years, they are going to review my success and they can offer me or not a permanent position. So in my case, I need a goals I have to achieve before this meeting. So it's important to know all those things, and your mentor can tell you what are the things that you need and keep you on track. Because as a fellow, is one of the things that I am really bad of is managing time, because you have to manage your lab, you have to manage your people, you have teaching, grant applications, you have to network. So there is so many things that at the moment is not balanced at all. But it's really worth it. And of course, networking. You need to keep networking, looking for new collaborators, people that they work with. So networking is still really important. So I would like to finish saying that staying in academia is not an easy choice. It's quite competitive, but it's really worth it as well. So if you like science, if you enjoy doing science, so pursue it. It's amazing. It's an amazing work, and it's really worth it. And that's it. Thank you very much.